What's up, YouTube? Today we're going to be talking about the Mage specs. Which Mage spec is going to be strong in 7.2.5, which ones are the weaker ones, which ones overall you should be looking at if you're looking towards pushing towards that Gladiator title, that whatever Duelist title, Rank 1 title, Rival, whatever it is that you guys are trying to do, or even if you're just trying to get into an arena, or RBGs, or whatever. Okay, so we're going to structure this in a couple different ways. We're just going to go through the Frost spec, then we're going to go Fire, then we're going to go Arcane. Okay, so Frost is a spec that has been kind of shifting out of the meta as of recently. I haven't seen quite as many Frost Mages, and it's so odd because Frost Mage has been kind of the staple PvP pick for the last few expansions, and overall people have always thought of Frost Mages as the PvP spec for mages. But as of recently, especially last season, we really haven't seen as much. And I think that has been going towards a few different things, right? So as Frost, if we were to look at it, that like the spec overall doesn't have a whole lot to survive. We have a lot to basically disrupt people if they are on not you, right? If they're on your teammates, if they're across the map, like you're able to slow them and do that really well with the Frigid Winds talent that makes it so that your Blizzard is a 65% slow, your Frostbolt is 65% slow, and your Kernel Cold is an 85% slow. So that's really solid, right? But Frost definitely doesn't seem to accomplish anything that other specs can't, and I feel like that's because Arcane is definitely similar to Frost in a lot of different ways, but does things a little bit better. So we're going to speak about the survivability of Frost over the other two specs. I feel like Frost definitely has its ability to survive a little bit better than Arcane at the base level, at the lower levels of PvP, because Frost has 2 ice blocks, right? But the problem is that against players that are in the higher rating, Frost isn't as good because Frost, like once you get through those ice blocks, once you use your 2-minute or your 3-minute cooldowns, offensive cooldowns, to get through those ice blocks, whereas ice block is a 4-minute cooldown and then cold snap is a 5-minute cooldown. The problem is that like people will have their chaos blades, they'll have their shadow blades, they'll have their battle cry, their incarnation from feral druids, their true shots, whatever it is, they'll have that faster than you'll have ice blocks. So you just kind of work through those ice blocks, and then all of a sudden you don't have any ice blocks when those cooldowns come back up and you die. And not only on top of that, but you also don't have a whole lot of mobility and ways to survive that like disrupts people's characters. So for example, Fire has Dragon's Breath. Frost doesn't. Frost only has Frost Nova, but still like Fire and Arcane both have Frost Nova. You see what I'm saying? It just seems like overall Frost does really well when they're not being targeted, when they're not being killed. Maybe even in like RBGs, there's a lot of capabilities for Frost, but the problem is that Frost really doesn't offer much in 3v3 that the other classes don't have. Like Arcane can do burst damage, Fire can do burst damage. It's just that Frost also has to cast. They have a really high amount of burst damage with their Ebon Bolts. So for against like lower rated players, if you're just looking to get into PvP, they might not interrupt that Ebon Bolts, where you do get a lot of burst damage off, and maybe you do get a win off of that. But at the higher ratings, you're pretty much never going to be able to get off an Ebon Bolt very consistently. And especially with Icy Veins, like Icy Veins will just be purged immediately. So it's really hard for Frost to survive right now in arenas. And also like their quality of life is just overall a little bit too low. And I think that's because of the long cast times that are associated with Frost. I think that if Frost did a little bit less damage but had a lot faster cast times, so stuff, maybe even like making Icy Veins a PvP talent where it could be passive 15% haste, I think even like that could offer a lot to Frost, because that means that Frost could have like 1.4 second Frostbolt casts, Ebon Bolt could be 2.3 or 2.2 seconds cast time, and overall like there's just a lot of ways that you can make Frost a little bit better, and Icy Veins hasn't been that very, it's not that good of a talent. Like it's a 3-minute cooldown that can be purged instantly, whereas like True Shot can't be purged, Incarn can't be purged. There's a lot of different spells out there that are a lot better and a lot lower cooldown and can't be purged. And I think that Frost overall just has its dark days because of that. So we're gonna kind of jump into Fire. Fire's definitely been the overall highest participation mage spec for these last couple seasons, because they do a really solid amount of instant cast burst damage. They don't do the highest damage in the world, like they can't just blow someone up, but they do a lot of really solid damage and control and tankiness. Okay, so they're the tanky spec of the 3. Fire overall definitely has its capabilities towards being one of the like strongest specs in the game, because of their ability to do those constant 300 to 400k crits. Even though it's not the largest crits of the world, there's just a ton of them, and they just keep going and they just keep going, and you can't really disrupt it too well. All you can do is really just try to line of sight them or disrupt the mage overall. But they also have this ability called Dragon's Breath. And Dragon's Breath is super useful because you are able to use it defensively to survive, or you're able to use it offensively to land a kill. You can basically blink around a pillar, you can Dragon's Breath the healer into a polymorph and the healer can't run away from you, or what you can do is if there's 2 melee on you, you can Dragon's Breath them both, they can't play their characters for 4 seconds, you'll recover in that time, and it allows you to kind of bridge a gap between playing defensively or offensively, surviving, which is a really big problem for mages, and also you can do a pretty solid amount of support damage in order to land a kill. You can't kill someone on your own, but if you have an Armor's Warrior that does a huge amount of damage, or you play with a Feral Druid, for example, that does a huge amount of damage in Incarnation, you can overall get a lot of damage out and do a lot of consistent damage that can't be interrupted, which is very important. Alright, so Fire Mage has definitely seen a lot of participation at the higher ratings. It always has for these last couple seasons, and I think that it'll continue to. There's really not a whole lot of changes for Fire. They just do their job well. That's really it. They survive. They can get CC sometimes when they need to. They can get really good instant cast damage out. They don't have to worry about being interrupted a whole lot, which is nice. And I'm going to talk about Arcane a little bit more extensively this specific video, right? Because I played Arcane to rank 1 last season. I was one of the only Arcane mages to play the game at that high rating, and I feel like Arcane is one of the most underrated specs in the entire game, and I feel like it should be played pretty much all the time. I really feel like there's very few times where Arcane is bad. And I want to talk about that because Arcane offers so many different ways to play the game, and it's hard to explain because Arcane is one of the highest skill capped classes in the game. I truly believe that. Out of all the other classes in the game that focus on burst damage and control, maybe even Marksman Hunter or something like that, I feel like Arcane offers a lot of different ways to play and a lot of ways to outplay your opponents. Okay, so we're going to talk about the damage of Arcane first. Overall, the damage of Arcane is extremely consistent and extremely high. It rival classes like Arms Warrior or Affliction Warlock. It does that much damage, and it also has on-demand burst damage with the Presence of Mind 2 Arcane Blasts and Arcane Power with 30% extra damage, and then also your Barrage or your Arcane Orbs or your Missiles. They all do a huge amount of burst damage, but you can also do consistent AoE damage through Arcane Explosion, spamming into Barrage with Resonance, and being able to get that huge amount of Resonance burst damage out on a consistent basis because you can do that every 4 to 5 globals, right? So any team that groups up at all, you can really get a lot of AoE damage out. You can continuously get those Arcane Orbs out to get more charges, to get more barrages, to get more resonance damage, which is really valuable. And that's only a 20-second cooldown. And then every now and then you can do your Arcane Power, Presence of Mind, or Arcane Missiles to get a huge amount of burst damage. All right, now I want to talk about the survivability of Arcane Mage because on paper, it's actually the weakest of the 3. You only have 1 Ice Block. That's it. That's all you got. You got Temporal Shield, which gets purged a lot, and you've got an Ice Block. Okay? But you have these things called Shimmer and Displacement, and these two are by far it's kind of poorly used in a lot of ways. So Displacement, obviously, what you can do is you can displace super far away. So if I were to run away from this orb right here, I can displace all the way back, and it gives me another blink charge, another shimmer charge. So that means I can get up to 4 to 5 blinks in about 30 seconds, which is super useful. You can displace through walls. You can displace you can displace through line of sight, which is super valuable. You can displace super far away, upwards of I think it's an 80 or 100 yards limit. So you can displace across the map if you want to. And there's a lot of ways to use this ability to where you can actually stop people from doing damage to you through line of sight or through just range in general. So for example, a Hunter's True Shot, you can displace super far across the map and be across the pillar. That's very, very hard for him to get to you in that 15-second window he has for damage. For example, Warriors are a big controversy for killing Arcane Mages because Arcane Mages die in stuns. But Stormbolt, for example, Stormbolt has to travel to you. So if you're fast enough on your action time, you can actually displace or blink away from the Stormbolt while it's in midair, and you can actually be line of sight and completely safe whenever you're stunned. It's just a matter of skill, it's a matter of reaction time, it's a matter of being able to do it at the right moment. And I think that overall, Arcane Mage has so much possibility for playing well through mass invisibility, through greater invisibility whenever at the right times and communicating with your teammates, or displacing through walls or blinking around and getting offensive pressure out. And I feel like overall Arcane, if played well, if you're an advanced Mage player, you should be playing Arcane because it's by far the best spec in my opinion. However, if you want to be more on that instant cast side where you just want to be a consistent mage player, you just want to get that damage out and you don't want to shoot for the stars mechanically, play fire. It's a better spec for just that type of player. But I want that challenge. I want that challenge to be able to outplay people. I want that challenge to be able to blow someone up on my own, and fire can't do that. And I feel like Frost is just too limited since they don't have as many blinks, they don't have as much to do in order to survive. They run out of abilities, but I feel like Arcane very rarely runs out of abilities to do that would save you, right? So like I feel like blink is always an option if you play well. And I feel like with Mage, or Frost Mage, you don't have that always. Blinks come up so regularly, and that allows you to create more options for yourself for mass invisibility or using your greater invisibility before a stun hits you so you take 60% reduced damage for 3 seconds. Like, all those types of things are really valuable to me whenever I play Arcane Mage. Every single ability I have on my bar is 100% useful. Okay, and I love that feeling. I think Arcane Mage is a really awesome spec, and I really enjoy playing it right now. And I encourage a lot of you guys to go out there and try it for yourself and try to be a good Arcane Mage, because it's a lot of fun if you are a good one. It's a lot of fun if you can keep up with the abilities that you have, and it's a lot of fun if you can predict and proactively outplay your opponents before they use their abilities. That's just fun for me. So that's pretty much my entire opinion on this class, guys. I definitely will keep you updated as changes go out for the Mage. Since I play the class, it's super easy for me to do so, but I'm going to be continuing to roll out more and more interviews with top players and talk to them about their class and what classes they're best at on this channel. So be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already. You can leave a like and comment down below if you enjoy the series and you want to see more of these videos. And you can also catch me on my live streams every single weekday. My link is in the description to my Twitch channel, and I'd love for you guys to come by and say hi and stop by and just tell me about your day. So thanks guys for watching. I'll see you all tomorrow.